I saw a little bit. Let me tell you, cycle two.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I'm going around some 10-year-old stuff.
Yes. And foot setback.
Oh, is that? Oh, that's showing.
Yeah, that's usually.
Let me mirror my displays. Probably easiest to mirror.
Yeah. So I. Too bad.
There we go. Now you guys can see what I'm doing. Uh-oh.
Right. And it can, do 2D drawings, yeah, the old barrier. But they're still taking it down in the 3D model. Nice. Right, yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna spend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's suspicious, just remember. Oh, yeah. It does. And then filter. What do you call it? That's into 3D.
Yeah, if you want the higher speed connection, it's on the My Wi-Fi, My Spectrum.
Yes.
Oh,
There's a My Spectrum Wi-Fi -2E.
I think I'm all right. I'm connected.
Yeah.
Let me get something up here.
I'm like that.
I figured I'd go through my summit talk. Well, let this build. Let this build because I want to show you some cool stuff.
Well, that's right.
It's not gonna come out great.
Yeah, so this is a talk we did at Red Hat Summit like last, what was that, 2 months ago? End of May, like May 9th, 2020, or something like that. So what, about a month ago? But basically, this was Rhel was 36 months of work, 1,500 engineers, 200 product owners, 150 engineering managers, 45 product managers, probably another 40, 50, 60 product marketing people. It was a huge project basically to get Rhel out the door. It's a huge business.
$4 billion probably this year is likely what it'll be around that. Yeah, it's surprisingly large. I don't think anyone ever thought we'd make this much money off open source software.
So what was it before IBM then acquired?
Probably 2.5. We were right around 2.5, 2.6, I think, back then when they acquired. Maybe 2.5. We were over $1 billion for sure.
And so
I think the whole company was around 2.3.
so what did it do for the company once the acquisition of IBM?
It's been interesting. You know, we're ran completely separately. We have a board of directors,
Okay.
our own separate board of directors. Our CEO, Matt Hicks, reports to Arvin, the CEO. And other than that, none of us report into IBM.
Okay.
And literally, there's like a lot of time there will be like hiring freezes between the companies. We won't be allowed to hire IBM people and vice versa and stuff like that. They're basically treated as a partner, albeit a little special, but like still mostly just a partner. We've retained all of our neutrality.
What's the benefit for IBM to have you?
That is a good. Well, we're faster growing than most businesses in IBM, so definitely
Well, you
financially.
doubled in revenue, right?
Yeah.
Over what? When was the acquisition?
I don't know how many. Pre-COVID, right?
Was it okay?
I think so. Yeah, that was definitely pre-COVID.
So you guys have doubled.
Probably 6 years. Or was it 2019? Yeah, we doubled in 6 years. So that's way faster than most businesses IBM has.
I know in 2003, they was talking about putting Linux on the 3390 mainframe.
Yeah. You know, I think what they get out of us is faster growing business, open source. They've transferred some people to us. They actually have some really smart people that work in IBM in their research division. I'll still admit they have a pretty serious talent pool in certain things, right? Like in quantum, in AI. They've always retained like a pretty solid talent base, but they haven't known what to do with them. And some of those people have come over to us. And then some of our stuff has went over to them that made sense, like some of the middleware stuff we've kind of pushed over there because it was like never really our specialty. So now if you look at Red Hat's the funny part is our revenue is what it is with the businesses that we still have. So like we've shed some, but we still have grown. I don't know what the whole business is, probably around, I would take a stab 6-7 billion, total. Probably 6-ish, I would say. We're probably getting close to 6, gotta be, because Rhel's the biggest one, Red Enterprise Linux. Then OpenShift is over $1 billion. We announced that, and then Ansible is probably on track to get to $1 billion. It's crazy. You think about configuration management getting
close to 3 billion.
No, we're going to hopefully be over 4 at some point.
Yeah,
soon. And then I think the public announcement for OpenShift was when it got over $1 billion, but it's already on track to the next.
Oh,
yeah. And then Ansible is probably on track to 1 million. So like everyone keeps saying, oh, you can't only Red Hat can make money with open source. It's bullshit. It's they don't know how to do open source the right way. I would argue I would argue, look at Automatic, look at WordPress. He has a Matt Mullenweg has a multi-billion-dollar open source business, and he does it all right. He doesn't do any of the shady shit that like venture capitalists do and all kinds of stuff. He's a solid guy. And WordPress, and look at how many business units there are at Automatic. There's WordPress, there's Akismet, there's the podcast thing he has, Pocket Cast. There's like 25 business units within Automatic. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and that guy's probably a billionaire. It's privately owned. He never went public, and he never took venture capital, as far as I know. And so like he's privately owns this company. It's all open source. He's doing it the right way. So like argue there can only be one Red Hat is just.
So how did Red Hat generate its revenue back in the day being open source? I mean, what was the secret to generating revenue when you're giving something away?
The number one back then was there was a bunch of value props. I wrote an article called "The 18 Ways You Can Monetize Open Source Software." You need something that what an open source user wants is very different than what a business wants, right? Yeah. And so if you focus on what businesses need, they need things like back in the day, regular users didn't necessarily care about CVEs nearly as much, but businesses did. Users didn't really care about open source indemnification. But back in the day when we first started selling Rhel, people were terrified of running open source. They thought they would get sued. And people were getting sued for using open source. And so we would protect them, like our legal department would protect them. And so you were kind of buying into a defense. That was one value prop. The stability of Rhel is on another level from anything other than Rhel. Honestly, I think it's in a league of its own from the stability perspective. Again, Fedora users are fine with that. Ubuntu users are fine with that, but not Rhel users. They're pissed if things break.
I got here a technical question. How's Red Hat compare with Comical?
That's a tough question. I mean, they're both Linux, but I would argue there's nuanced differences. You know, they've extended their life cycles to try to be more like us. Is what I would argue.
You're a multi-billion-dollar company. How about Canonical?
Canonical's I don't know. The last numbers I saw, they're getting close to $1 billion. There's another example. There's an example. Like they're close to $1 billion, probably 800 million or something. But which is not great for how long they've been around, but it's still solid. Like it's a solid business. Same with Seuss. Seuss is not going out of business. There's a bunch of ex-Red Hatters at Seuss. You know, so there's tons of businesses that have made it doing open source. I would say this about Canonical: they're still doing real open source. Like they're not doing the shady stuff that venture capitalist companies do. They still give away all their stuff. They contribute upstream. They don't contribute a lot, but they do it. And I would say they don't break the model. They do it the right way for the most part. Yeah. And same with Seuss. So like I would say those positive things about our competitors. It's not like they're doing open source the right way and they're still making money. They're not as good as us at it. They haven't made as much money at it, but still,
But you were first.
their businesses are functioning.
You were one of the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who would think you could give it away and make money?
It's I was in sales. I was in sales at Red Hat back in 2011, and you know I used to joke I sell free software. You know that's all. Tough business selling free software. It's like selling sand in the Middle East or water. Whatever, water to the Hawaiians. Or whatever. But like, it's
Refrigerator for that.
yeah, exactly. Refrigerators, the Eskimos. But no, but businesses want very different things than individuals, and I would argue a lot of the open source world was founded around what individuals want. And so, like for example, we were talking about Rocky and Alma. Rocky and Alma are fine for individuals. There are even some companies that want to use that, but they're mostly small. None of them big companies. I mean, they work. Don't get me wrong. Everybody wants to cut.
When it comes down to brass tacks, the way we patch, how stable it is, the fact that we're contributing all that stuff, and like our engineers are creating the code, they're not just consuming it from the upstream, they're creating it. So like if you want the latest, greatest,
Still stable though. Like I think we do it better than anybody else. I just don't think we win by outrunning everybody. We just have faster velocity.
How do you decide what goes into Red Hat from upstream? Like, how do you decide on the software that ends up making it to, like, from Fedora contribution?
That's a good question. So that was what I did 36 months ago, and that's what I'm doing again now. So I'm in the heat of that right now. In fact, the fall for Rhel 11, we're going to take myself, Brian Stinson, who's the lead product owner. He's in engineering, the lead user experience person, Tiffany Nolan. We're going to take the lead product marketer. And then we're going to take the lead, all 5 of us, we're going to get together at some kind of open source conference, tag along to that. And we're going to basically sit down and go through a list of, basically we've surveyed a bunch of people internally, externally, customers, partners, the community. We have some through Fedora discussions. Okay, wait, let me back up and explain how this all works. So Fedora can do whatever it wants. It's managed as an independent organization. Okay. There's a board of directors. Basically, they have all their acronyms and stuff, and I can't remember what they're called, but they do whatever they want. And Rhel advocates within that. I, for example, advocate within that community to get what I want for our business, and I understand our business quite well. So but it's still my job to go advocate in that community. I can't tell them what to do. They get to do whatever they want. So, for example, you'll see in Fedora they have ButterFS. We don't in Rhel. We don't have customers that really want ButterFS, but there's a ton of people in the. There are vocal advocates within the community that want ButterFS. I'll say that. I don't know if there's a ton, but there's some very loud ones. And so if you have loud people, they get what they want. And that's fine in the community. We let them do whatever they want. But the way we select what we want is we very much consider what the customer wants and what we think is best for the customer. And so I will take my little crew of people, we will go sort this out. We'll come up with a plan of the big rocks that we want for Rhel 11. We will then take those back to our executives and then review it with all of them and say, hey, this is our plan that we propose. What do you guys think? We're 60% sure. And then we'll keep revisiting over the next 36 months and resorting the big, I'm calling them the big rocks. We'll resort the big rocks, figure out, are these the things we still think are important, or have things changed? With AI and all this stuff, things change super quick. We acquire companies, et cetera. So there's all of these things. We have to be flexible over the next 36 months, but I'll give you an example. We know we need to get to post-quantum crypto. Post-quantum crypto, we launched the first pieces in Rhel 10. We're definitely going to keep executing against that into Rhel 11. Another thing I know we're going to execute against is Lightspeed. Lightspeed is like a command line assistant that helps people. It's definitely going to move to agentic. It's definitely going to consume more and more Red Hats. knowledge. It's definitely going to consume more of the state on the system and help people troubleshoot what's going on. We already know that. So like that's a big rock. These are two big rocks that I already know going to Rhel 11. Another one that I already know, probably DNF5. Like DNF5 has to come. But how will DNF5 evolve? That depends. Like should it be able to pull down container images of AI models? Should it be able to, I don't know, I'm making up stuff, but like we have to brainstorm like what those things are that we think customers need and then advocate for those in the communities and then drive what we want in Fedora. And so that's how we'll know what gets from Fedora to Rhel, basically in a nutshell. Does that help?
Yeah, awesome. I'm also curious about internally, you guys do your own software, like Red Hat only software, or does it all come from upstream Fedora contributions?
Everything that we give to a customer that they hand that we transfer, like that somebody downloads from us and they take is open source. There's stuff internally that's like we have build systems and script together, hack together things like every company on the planet. That stuff is not exactly. It's not that it's not open source. It's just like what would anyone do with this? Like we definitely have internal systems that we're not proud of, like every company on the planet. Well, like
GFS criteria. I'm mistaken.
No, GFS is still GPFS, though IBM one is proprietary, but GFS 2 is definitely open source. We removed support, like we're not going to support that add-on in Rhel 10. We are kind of pushing people to use something else, either Veritas or GPFS or whatever. We don't care. They're both partners. IBM is a partner. Veritas is a partner. Red Hat is neutral.
Well, file systems, what do you use in place of PTR plus?
We use LVM and we'll define what to use in face. I would argue the other way. There's no business that needs. We have not. I haven't had a single business for about PTRFS. Not a single big company.
Interesting.
Yes, this is all play stuff that like a lot of end users love for their like desktops and things, but it's not something that all these big businesses have backup systems that are so sophisticated. They're not doing this kind of thing. In general, that's a perfect example of one that is like so disparately different between what a business wants and what an individual wants. So we let Fedora do ButterFS and we do, if I'm being honest, in my heart of hearts, I would prefer Fedora to do what we're doing just because it would be nice to get that testing. But they're still ran as an independent organization. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, there was a project again, but it was a Red Hat sponsored project. Taking the LVM type features, they were trying to
Stratus. I think it was Stratus. Yeah. We still support Stratus in Rhel. That was a big push for a while.
Doesn't seem to be moving very fast.
It doesn't seem to be moving very fast. But I would argue the reason why is because customers don't really care. They didn't get excited about it. No customer was like, oh yeah, this is on Lightspeed. People are losing their minds. Rhel image mode, which I'll show tonight. People are losing their minds. I mean, this is like hot commodity. People want this. Like they were begging for it. So it's like when you're in, product management, the hardest thing is that there's unlimited wants, but there's a finite amount of resources, right? So I have to sort of stack rank what's the most important and where we should spend our brain power. And then my job is sort of the lead PM is to then, everybody disagrees. I'm managing a bunch of humans that all disagree. And I'm like, I have to like keep the sandcastle together and get everybody to go that direction. It's like, sometimes I'm like, all right, guys, that's great. We haggled about this last week. We're done with this argument. Disagree and commit. Let's keep going this direction. And that is tough. That's the hardest part of these things because we're so big, roughly 2,000 people involved in Rhel 10, and there'll probably be a similar number or even more, maybe I don't know, similar at least with AI, who knows, right? With agents, 2,000 people plus a bunch of agents involved in Rhel would be my guess. But
this historical kind of question, CentOS, I remember reading Linux format, a big brouhaha, apparently Red Hat dropped CentOS. What was that all about?
I wrote a giant article about this that went super viral. It's the only thing I've ever written that went viral. It was like 50,000 hits on it. I have like, I don't know, it's up to 100,000 or something. Like I've never written a blog that had 100,000.
Fedora for a while.
Well, I'm just kind of like saying this is a hot topic that could get me in trouble. But what happened? So I started Red Hat when we had 3,200 people, but I'd say there was about 100 people that really ran the company. And I knew I got to know a lot of them. I would say we're at 23,000-ish people, 22, 23. I don't exactly know the number. There's probably still like 200-300 people that are like the real brain trust of the company. Mm-hmm. The brain trust got excited about acquiring CentOS because we saw it as a thorn in our side. And we were like, oh, this will be nice. We control this, then it'll be good. And at the time, somebody convinced Paul Cormier that it would be great as a development platform for OpenStack. Because our plan was, oh, Linux is the old passe technology, OpenStack's the hotness. So we've got to do whatever we can to like make OpenStack work. And so I would argue that we got excited about the shiny object and we went, oh, we'll do this thing. And then 5 years later, it didn't look so shiny because then Kubernetes took off and OpenStack OpenStack still is alive. It's a real business. I'm not saying it's dead, but it's not the hotness that it was back then. There are still some telcos that buy it and things like that, but it never grew into a multi-billion-dollar business.
Mhm.
And now OpenShift did. So Kubernetes won. OpenStack is still alive, but it didn't take off into a giant business. But we made all these changes to CentOS to like basically placate what we needed for OpenStack at the time. And then 5 years later, we ended up with this train wreck that we were like, oh, this is not what we wanted. None of this is what we wanted.
So we go.
I wouldn't say we killed it. We tried to convert it into something that was useful and valuable to Red Hat instead of something that we were just paying for. We felt like we were paying for this thing that didn't help us. And we did it for like 5 years. And after 5 years, people think there's unlimited money in big companies. There's just not. Like these things are like companies are broken down into all these little organizations. And at some point, one of the organizations is paying a really big number to support a thing. And at some point, somebody goes, why am I paying for this thing? And that's basically what happened. And at some point, somebody gets it up their ass that I don't want to pay for this thing. It's not even helping us. What are we doing here? Can we convert it into something that will help us?
That makes sense. Thank
Yeah. And so then we converted it into CentOS Stream, which is now upstream to Rhel. And I think that has been successful in several ways. And like I think transparent development of Rhel is really good. Now, historically, Fedora was the open source, and then we would take a fork of Fedora at a certain point, backport some things from Fedora, and then we would do all this development secretly for like a year and a half, and then we would come up with the next major version of Rhel. But that year and a half, 2 years, now 3 years that we're doing now was secret, and it was proprietary basically until we launched the product. Then it became open source, and so that was bad. Now you could CentOS 10 dropped before Rhel 10. You could use CentOS 10 like almost a year before, I think 11 months before Rhel launched. So you could go play with it. So you could see Rhel come together and see what the hell is in there. There were people that already knew about image mode. They've been using it and they were like, oh, we see where Red Hat's going. You'd be surprised how smart some of your customers are and how much they're tracking what you're doing, and they like see which direction you're going and why. They're very sharp. And so like I think that transparency helps.
So is CentOS not on an exact? I always thought it was like 2 year cycle for CentOS, 4 year cycle for Red Hat, and then like 6 month cycle.
CentOS is 5 years, I think, each version. It's like CentOS E8 with Rhel basically, and then it'll go for the first 5 years, I think, and then it goes to the next version. We'll launch Rhel 11 in 3 years, and then CentOS 10 will go on 2 more years, and then basically everybody should go to CentOS 11 that's using CentOS time. So basically CentOS gets like a 5 year window. Rhel goes 10 years. I know this is hard.
Yeah,
I'd almost have to show you a graph.
Okay.
I don't have it in my presentation. I'll show it to you, but you can kind of see it. There are life cycle graphs if you look this
Yeah.
up.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And it shows like CentOS basically, Rhel 10 and CentOS 10 start at the same time. CentOS goes 5 years, Rhel goes 10 years. And then Rhel has an add-on called Extended Life Cycle Support, ELS. That goes another 3 typically. But then behind the scenes, we have all kinds of secret contracts where we go much longer for certain customers. Customers would love if we went 20 or 30 years. There's definitely power plants and things like that would love if we just had the exact same version for 20 or 30 years. That is nearly impossible with today's technologies. It may not be impossible with LLMs. Actually, like going forward, there's a perfect example of something that I need to think about deeply for Rhel 11. Could we have an ELS that could go 20 years? Maybe. It's quite possible. I mean, think about how good AI is at backporting shit, and how good is it going to be in 5 years? There's 10 years. So I've got to kind of see where the puck's going to go. Maybe we could support a 30-year Linux distribution. I don't know. I've got to talk to our extended lifecycle group and see if we think we could do it. That's the kind of thing I would evaluate for Rhel 11.
So
It's
what's
actually
the
huge,
door
right?
in CentOS? How does that fit in? How do we stop?
It's the upstream development for Rhel.
Fedora is.
Oh, Fedora is too. It's Fedora, then CentOS. Then. So, okay, think of it this way. Fedora is the
will as we get closer to Rhel. Actually, my plan. I think I'll people say it that way. Of course, my inner marketer sales guy does not want to accept that. I think it's pretty damn stable. I think people underestimate how stable the outputs of Rhel are. And so it sounds like it's taking away from the value prop in my mind. I think CentOS is pretty freaking stable.
I use CentOS. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's pretty freaking stable, but some people would
Criticize and say, "Oh, you're doing this to make it unstable," and I'm like, I don't know if that's like, is it really? It doesn't have a dot release because the use case we want to target with it is different than what we want with Rhel.
I see.
Actually, I'd get rid of dot releases in Rhel if I could. There's a perfect example of something I would evaluate for Rhel. Can we get rid of dot releases? We talked about it in Rhel 10. We actually said, can we get rid of dot releases? We called like 35 smart people in a room. We haggled for like 2 hours, and then we decided we couldn't do it. We talked about getting rid of dot release. Then we talked about
.2, .4, have set up the export releases that went like longer, like 3 years each. We evaluate all kinds of changes in Rhel 10. But now we've had Rhel 8, 9, and 10 all use the exact same lifecycle system. I didn't want to change it in Rhel 10 because I'm like, we kind of all swore to ourselves that we would do free releases of Rhel to like see what the full glory from Rhel 8 to Rhel 10 looked like. And they all use the exact same life cycle. I would evaluate with Rhel 11 though. I would advocate for potentially looking at like, could we extend things? Could we get rid of dot releases? Maybe we don't need them. Like CentOS works pretty damn well without dot releases. Like, could we just get rid of them? I think they have this legacy thing where they are perceived as more stable, but I'm not sure that they are. So, okay, wait, let me explain
how packages get into CentOS, how they get updated.
Yeah.
There's all these gating tests
that are super sophisticated. So basically, if it gets into CentOS, it's going to get into Rhel. So it's like the same exact level of stability, but it does change. Okay, I would say it's the same level of.
You could have the same level of confidence that a certain packet, the kernel will work because it passed the same test that it would have had to pass to get into Rhel. But it can be different than Rhel. But I would, it depends.
Stable, right? Stable from a trustworthy perspective, will it work? I think they're about the same. Stable is, does the version change? They're not the same. CentOS will change. Yeah. And that's actually something we've evaluated deeply. There's a type of user that absolutely liked it
To move faster, but at the same quality level. And then there are people that like it to move slower at the same quality level. There's still a perception that they just don't want anything to change. I don't want anything to break. But there are other people that are like, I want
the same quality level, but I want it faster because I want to unblock some other thing. New repack, that's what I mean, new features and new packages. Exactly. Well, and there's a bunch of versions of Node on Rhel.
I don't know if you know that. There's something called app streams. So there's multiple app streams. There can be 3, 4, 5, 6 different versions of Node that all run on Rhel 10.
Let's see it. I guess you can use.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't even gotten through the first slide.
We want to hit the slide.
I know. All right. So it's funny at Summit, I'll give you guys kind of meta. So
Got a thing with me. He does. He lives in Europe. He goes into the ops provider thing where he like stays up in the air for like 8 hours. And he's like this crazy fit dude. And has no taste. He had a weird like nobody really knows. Doctors don't know what happened. He had sort of maybe like an aneurysm, minor aneurysm, and he woke up bleeding in his house, and like he changed. It was like life-changing moment. He decided he's gonna do whatever he wants in life. He's gonna be happy. It really changed everything. But he has no taste. He hasn't had taste for like 5 years. And so we were like, we hot sauce. And we'll do hot ones and zeros, and we'll make a joke about the hot ones. Have you guys seen Hot Ones? The show where people eat. The interviewer guy interviews this guy,
and they each eat hotter and hotter wings. We decided we're going to do that. I'm like, this is not fair. Like this is definitely not fair.
He
Heat
does-
stuff has no taste.
Oh, he can't taste.
Yeah.
Not
he
the-
can't taste it.
He can't taste it.
But he can still feel heat.
Yeah.
So we recorded this talk actually, so you're getting the funnier version. But like we did this live. It actually got, I will say it got, I don't know if it was the best talk at Summit, but it got really good reviews. There were like all the people that reviewed it basically got all 5s in every category except for 1 4 in one category from one person.
Mm-hmm.
So like it got pretty good reviews, but we were pretty funny. Stuff's pretty funny too. And long story short, we go through this and we were like, oh, let's go through the spicier and spicier features in Rhel 10. And then we just like kept eating hotter sauce. And dude, so this was the Rojo, not bad. Rojo's not bad. And we just kind of went through all the things that are in Rhel. So like you asked, like, how did we know what we wanted in Rhel 10 from Fedora, basically? This is exactly it. So like we kind of thought through like what the themes. We interviewed a bunch of customers. I went all over the world. I interviewed customers in Europe and Asia and all kinds of places. And I basically sat down with them and asked them, like, what pain are you having in a nutshell? Like, what's blocking you with Rhel? And the one thing that I heard over and over and over again was we have a ton of automation. We can do updates. It's easy. Satellite's great. The updates from Rhel are great, but it takes so long to plan out a rollout. Like when we roll from Rhel 8 to Rhel 9, or Rhel 9 to Rhel 10, or Rhel 7 to Rhel 8 in particular, because those are very different. Rhel 7 and Rhel 8 were like totally different because Rhel 7 was like, it was done when it's done. Rhel 8 is on a 36-month life cycle, and we do releases every like 6 months, dot releases. It's on like a TikTok clock where it's like the train leaves the station, where Rhel 7 wasn't like that. The dot releases would be like 6 months apart, 9 months, 7 months, 10 months. Like they were completely, we had no schedule. It's actually hilarious looking back at Rhel 7 that people perceive that as stable. Like our customers are like, oh, yeah, this is great operating system. It's very stable. I'm like, we don't even know when we're going to release the dot release. Like it was actually insanity when I look back now and realizing how harebrained it was. But Rhel 8 is like every 6 months the dot release. It's very uniform. It's made all of our engineers' lives a lot less chaotic. So we kind of like knew this already in Rhel 10, right? Like I already knew that. So we knew how we were going to slice off a Rhel. But we knew that there were like some real problems. Like we knew the skills gap problem was a thing. We knew the planning and shifting left stuff was a thing. We basically interviewed a bunch of customers. And so we started looking around like what technology areas can help us solve this. AI was starting to take off. But we actually like to give you some more meta on this. We actually were thinking about insights. The first year and a half, we were actually thinking about bringing insights to development. Like insights, I don't know if you've used Red Hat Insights, but it's this tool that you basically register your system with the Red Hat network. It analyzes a bunch of stuff on your server and it tells you if something's broken and whether you need to update, whether there's CVEs. It gives you all this advice on things are configured wrong. It's basically a bunch of our support knowledge-based data, and it kind of proactively tells you. It's like instead of you waiting for something to break and then calling support and being like, why is this broken? It says, hey, wait, look, buddy, like this thing looks like it's kind of broken. Like, why do you have it configured this way? Because we've seen this a million times, people break this. And it was pretty cool, but it was not AI driven. There was no LLMs. It was just purely analytics, regular code, analyzing things with rules engine, matching up rules and things like that. But then as the AI stuff happened, we were like, actually, like we launched this thing. We launched Ansible Lightspeed, which helped people configure code and make code. It's almost more of a code assistant. And basically each team, like OpenShift, Ansible, and Rhel were kind of allowed to do whatever they wanted. But we knew we were like, oh, there's this LLM stuff. It was basically like, Rhel, what can you do with an LLM to make your product better? And I was like, dude, we have this business problem that we've been looking at very deeply for 18 months and bringing more insights to. But like Lightspeed was a no-brainer. Like command line assistant and actually using all the stuff that we did with insights planning, which I'll show you. It's like, here, I'll give you an example. Like, so here's the life cycle of what it looked like when we launched last month, month before last. Rhel 8 has already been out for 5 years. And actually, CentOS 8 ends here. This is probably a good drawing to show you actually how that works. Rhel keeps going. But like the idea of CentOS 9, you would have to go here. But you have this 2 years to upgrade from CentOS 8 to 9. But Rhel obviously gives you much. Same with Rhel 10, CentOS 9 is still out, but it'll end here, and then you'll have this window from the time you launch Rhel 10 to 2 years later that you'll have to upgrade.
Well, long story short, this is kind of what the life cycle looks like. And this drawing is actually a piece of software that's in console.redhat.com that shows the customer. No other Linux distro really shows people all of this information because we knew that planning is one of the things that our customers struggle with the most. So they're willing to pay for like this very highly curated information that will explain to them the relation of all these things to make better that's something that I feel zero guilt charging like JPMC or Bank of America, right? Like, you know, anybody that's making billions of dollars, I am fine with like giving them information like this to help them better plan it, and then they give us money. Like that sounds great. Everybody's winning. That is the very, very simple definition, but I would argue this
Is a type of support, right? Like information. I would call it expertise. Like they're paying for the expertise of how the Linux distro is built. I had a customer, potential customer in Asia, reach out to us. It's one of these emergency things. Like I'm like the wolf. They call me. They're like, "Hey, Scott, we need to get on with this customer because this is crazy." They want to build their own Linux distro and they want to partner with us. And I'm like, why would we partner? Like the way we partner with a customer to build an operating system is they pay us for Rhel, and then we give them Rhel, and then they tell us what they need, and we change Rhel for. That's how we partner. But they're like, oh, they're like, oh,
sent to us to build. So I showed them a drawing. I showed them screenshot in here. Okay, hold on, let me drop out and show you this. So if you go into console.redhat.com, I showed them this. So this is, you go, again, 3 big businesses in Rhel. You go to the Rhel one, or within Red Hat. You go to planning. So this is a tool we released in Rhel. You can go through and look, these are all the, okay, well, actually, this information is actually pretty deep, and then you'll kind of.
Okay. So this is every minor release in Rhel from the beginning of time in Rhel 7 to Rhel 10. We're even going into the future here, and we're showing you what these dot releases are going to look like, right? And then we're showing you, oh, look, Rhel 8.10 will be a long life cycle that goes this way. So that customers can kind of plan out what they want. Then we can also show you the life cycles and application streams on top. So like you mentioned, Node.js. Node.js actually in Rhel, actually, which one is this? This is Rhel 9. So you'll see Node.js 22, Node.js 18. What others? There's probably more in Rhel 8. Let's see, like Rhel 8. There's a bunch of Node.js's. So if you look so look, there was like 16, 18, 20, 22 were all supported or are all supported. And you can see which ones have future life and which ones are old, right? So 18 just ran out. But the beautiful part is you'll notice in Rhel 8, there's Node.js 18, but then in Rhel 9, there's also Node.js 18. So you're like, oh, look, there's a smooth transition to literally move from Node.js 18 on Rhel 8 to Rhel 9. And then I can update to 20 later. So you can imagine like we give people basically a path to like smoothly upgrade the OS and then later update the Node.js and then show them that. And then obviously down the road, one can quite easily imagine that we'll be able to practically give people these plans and say like, hey, here's the plan. LLMs are going to make this kind of thing like super easy where we go basically like, how do I, okay, I'm going to launch a server today. Over the next 10 years, what actions am I going to have to take to support the server? And it's going to say, oh, in this month, you need to upgrade Node.js from 18 to 20. And then later you'll need to upgrade the Rhel and do this. And we think that will take about 22 hours worth of work over the next 10 years or whatever. Like we will be able to give people that level of clarity about what they need to do to plan out this operating system release for their infrastructure. And by the way, you have 10,000 servers and we analyzed all 10,000 and we're telling you this is exactly how many people you will probably need to manage this. And this is how hard that is. That's a real business problem. That's a super real business problem that all of our IT decision makers that are our customers want. But no end user on the planet cares about this, right? Like no Fedora user, no Ubuntu user, no Arch Linux user cares about this shit. They could care less. But this is a very profitable piece that people with a lot of money do care about. So like that's what Red Hat does, basically in a nutshell, is go find those business problems that people will care about, target those, and then be good at it, be really good at it, right? Like that, and they like paying you for that. So this is not AI, right? Like there's no AI in this. This is actually kind of some of the stuff that we originally developed early on. We're calling this thing digital roadmap. Another interesting feature from this is that we actually have all the product managers for all the different subsystem teams and product owners putting in all of the major features are coming. So like we can tell you like, hey, when are we going to upgrade to, for example, LLVM 20? And you could see it's going to happen in 9.7 and 10.1. 10.1 is not out yet. Like 10.1 happens in November-ish. So like we're able to tell people, we're calling this thing the digital roadmap. We're able to show them what software is coming and when. And that is something, again, no Linux operating system on the planet has this kind of thing. It's like, when is this coming in Ubuntu? Good luck. I don't know. Whenever they get to it, and same with Rhel before. We were actually like that too. But now we're starting to proactively tell customers, because we know this stuff internally. We already have these plans internally. Why not turn them into a roadmap that people can see so they can actually self-service this information? So I've been saying that the success metric for Rhel 11 is, you don't need me to come in, or any of the other product managers to come in and give you a roadmap. You'll be able to generate a roadmap. I mean, with LLMs, I am sure they were going to be able to dissect this information, digest this information, turn it into a presentation, and create a roadmap. They're going to be able to create their own self-service roadmap where some guy talks to you and just tells you the roadmap, right? They're not going to need me to do that. Now, they may want me to come in to go argue about the strategic direction and go, well, we don't like what you're doing here. Why are you doing that? And they're going to want to know background information. I'll have to explain, but we'll be able to have a really solid conversation about why we prioritize things certain ways, and haggle about that, instead of just doing basic information communication that is just not that useful. I mean, it's very useful, but it's a lot more useful if you can.
By the way, it's how every software vendor, you basically beat up your sales guy or gal. You go, I need a product manager to tell me what's going on with this product. And then they go beat up people internally and eventually get the product manager. And the product manager eventually, because they're super busy, schedules a meeting with the customer, comes in, the customer's mad, argues. The product manager says, yeah, we're not delivering that thing until 2 years from now or whatever. And then everyone argues and haggles, no one's happy. That's how software works today. That's how Oracle, it's how SAP, it's how every piece of software that every company buys. That's how it works. But I think Rhel is truly showing that there's a different way to do it. I think this is leading in the space where I think enterprise software can be a lot better. And then there's another one we're actually showing. So something I didn't explain here. This is showing the specific software that is going to become available for the servers that are registered to Red Hat Insights. So if you have a fleet of 100 servers and they're all configured differently, it will show you all the pieces of software that you care about that are coming for your fleet of servers. And then we also have something that we're dropping soon called digital release notes. And it's going to show you the release notes for all of the software that you actually have installed. So it goes through and analyzes all your servers and says, this isn't all of the release notes, which is a nightmare because it's 10,000 pages of stuff to read that nobody wants to read. It will show the exact software that you have installed on your specific fleet of servers. And then you only have to read those release notes, which I think is genius. That is such a no-brainer. As a sysadmin, you want that. I don't want to have to go read all the release notes. It's just yak shaving. And now again, with LLMs and things, we're going to get even better at this. In fact, I think we're going to get better at scraping this even from Fedora and showing people into the future what's going to come down the road and what we're investigating. In fact, I'm pushing for including discussions.fedora.org in this interface that we can show people what the Fedora people are haggling about right now. Oh, we don't like this. We want to configure this default. You should see all the discussions that happen in Fedora, but we could show the specific ones that affect components in Rhel 10, because we can basically do the Venn diagram of all the things that are in Rhel, because Fedora is bigger than Rhel, but we can show only look at the discussions in Fedora that affect the components that are in Rhel, and then show the debates in this interface so that a customer can see what potential things could change, and then advocate if they don't want it, right? Oh, actually, we really like that, or no, we hate that, don't do that. And that's a very common scenario where the upstream will make some choice that the customer does not like, or they make some choice that they love and they're beating down our door to get it later, quicker. Those are the kinds of pieces that's the information flow we want to facilitate in a platform like this. So you can see now, I'm not talking about the kernel version. I'm not talking about the glibc version. I'm not talking about bits and bytes and bullcrap. I'm talking about real problems that the customer has. I don't care what version of GTK or what version of GNOME or what. I mean, every individual user I know, that's all they talk about. They talk, what GNOME is in there? I'm I don't even care. Does any customer care about that? And they kind of do. They care when it breaks something. But generally, if there's some eye candy on the desktop, that's not something they care about. They don't care. Bank doesn't care about that. So this is the gist of where Rhel's going and how we select and why. We haven't been super good at telling this story. So I planned Rhel 10, and one of my sort of development goals or whatever is one of my goals for FY25 is definitely to share more of this more transparently and explain to people why we do what we're doing and how. I have more time to do that now that we're automating more and more stuff.
So like it actually is interesting because I'm actually able to have a better relationship with our customers in the community because I can actually focus on it because I'm not running. I mean, I am still very busy, but to be able to explain this to people, I think it then clicks and they go, oh, okay, I get it. Because when you don't understand how any of it works, it just makes you mad, right? Like everything just makes you mad. You're like, like why is this happening? But I think we can tell a much better story now that we can show what's happening and what's coming. Have any of you seen the command line assistant? That's another really cool thing. So all right, so let me do this. This is my local. So this is a Rhel 10 box that I installed about a week before Red Hat Summit because I'm an idiot. I got it last minute, my refresh. I was like, should I just use my old laptop and just keep it on Rhel 9 and just make sure this works? No, of course not. I've got to get Rhel 10 running. And not only do I have to have Rhel 10, I wanted Rhel 10 in image mode. How many of you guys know what image mode is? All right, so this is built with a container image that then I push out to a registry server. I pull it down, it lays it down on this disk, and it updates. You can't run a yum update on this server. Like it doesn't work that way. I have to go build a new container, push the container, and then this will update based on the latest container. So this basically only updates based on container images. So it's read only basically the operating system. And so but it's all built. So to give you an idea, this is the container file that built it.
It's all looks quite similar to, let's say, Shark Cloud, something like that. But then you see it like enables some things, it's subscription crap, and then I have to copy things like our internal. I use rclone to copy between like pcloud and my local stuff. I install the real people from I install from Apple. I also have this internal RPM that basically this corporate one. Sorry, this is my VPN. If you look at this VPN stuff, like these VPNs that are available, these basically are all configured with that RPM, and it's something we just produce it from. Again, is everything open source? Not exactly, because like why would we publish our VPN
packages to the world? We wouldn't do that. But we have internal repos and things. So I have to be connected to the VPN to go get this to then download it and then build it, which creates a unique problem. But
you can see like it's really quite simple. It's just group install, clean all, and then it's just specs pack. I install Cockpit, Git, Vim Enhanced, Red Hat Internal Network Manager. So this is the VPN profiles. I install Chrome, Command Line Assistant. This is cool, and I'll show you what this is next. But then
so if I want to build this, I do Podman. So every time I want to update my server, I do a Podman build. Actually here I have it in the history build. And then it goes out and it basically builds a it's not good. Oh, it's because I'm not connected to the son of a gun. I actually do need to connect to this.
Is this available on stream? Can you run a stream in image mode, or is that?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can definitely do that. And actually Fedora too. I actually built a Fedora version. All right, but yeah, the demo that
demo worked right before I show it to you. I didn't set it up ahead of time. Should have, but I want to show you two other features from Rhel 10 that I think are like groundbreaking. I think image mode is groundbreaking. I think Command Line Assistant is definitely groundbreaking. And I actually
used Command Line Assistant to help me troubleshoot installing this in image mode because that was chickens and eggs. I'm like, I was farting around with figuring it out, and I'm like, I just want to use Command Line Assistant. Ends up becoming like a buddy that you just like have come along with you, and instead of like calling your buddy or me texting engineers internally and being annoyed, I basically am just like, let me see what the Command Line Assistant can come up with to fix this and like what's broken.
Is that an AI thing?
It is. Now, this is an LLM based thing. This is statistical and non-deterministic, but it comes up with pretty good stuff. It's pretty good actually. All right, so let me go out to this thing and fire it up and reboot. Actually, let's see. Oops.
You guys have your own servers running this? Like, how does the MLM?
Yeah, we host everything.
You guys still?
It's beautiful. You do a single package install and it just works. All the stuff is hosted by us. So if you have a Rhel subscription, this just works. And by the way, Rhel subscriptions are free for individuals. So like if you just want to like get a Rhel subscription and play with it, you can totally do that. Which does cost us money, which is interesting.
60 days, I think.
No,
Oh,
no. You have
okay.
up to 16 servers unlimited forever.
Oh,
Anybody can. We changed that a while back, probably 3 years ago. Yeah, anybody can use up to 16 personal servers for whatever they
I
want.
downloaded Roll 10. I had to create an account to download it. And I think it was a 60-day account.
There are trials, but that's different than this is for
It is. So Silver Blue is not built with Boot C, the technology that's in Rhel. Let's see if we can get in. Oh, good. All right. So you look at this Red Hat release. This is a Rhel 10 box.
uptime. You'll see this thing's up for like a couple seconds. This is the virtual machine that I'm running on top of.
So let's see this thing. Let's do a Yum update on this thing. Imagine it's 2 a.m. and you're like, oh, I've got to do this updates, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, crap. Like, what is this?
Like, why is Yum broken? You're like, what in the actual? And then, you're like, oh, Python's broken. What the hell is this? Subscription man.
Basically, anything that uses Python is broken. How many of you have experienced this situation where you like log into something and you're like, what the actual happened? You're like, all right, let me look at this boot C status. Let's see what the hell happened here. Let's look at this. You're like, all right, I can quickly see that like on 618,
The last update was on 618 here, but on 7.4, some asshole updated this. I don't know who that guy was. You're like, I'm
just gonna literally not deal with this right now, and I'm gonna deal with this tomorrow. But at 2 a.m., I don't want to deal with this, so I'm just gonna do a boot C rollback. And it's gonna say, okay, cool, rollback, and then I'm gonna reboot this system. And then I'm literally just going to watch it reboot, as you can see over here. And I'm going to SSH back in, and I'm going to
say, please God, let Python be working. And it is. And I don't have to deal with anything. Now tomorrow I can mess with this. But actually,
okay, now I go home and I sleep for it. And I get up again at 8 or 9, and I'm like, all right, I got to go troubleshoot that thing. What the hell's going on? So I go, actually, how do I troubleshoot this? Well, I can actually do this. I can,
that server was built with a container file. I can look at the container file and be like, all right, I don't know, everything looks good in this, but let me run. Yeah, actually, here, that's a good one. Run. So, let's see. Where's the demo? Let's see on. I hate typing, so I'm being lazy here. Searching from my, oh well, let's just do this. Podman run -it quay.io/father Linux. Oops. Father Linux /rel 10 -bootc -demo. And then we'll do bash. So what am I doing here? I'm like, let me run a copy of that server locally as a container, the exact same image that is booted up on that server that's now working. But I know that image that's in the registry is
figure out what the hell's wrong. I'll go, okay, well, it's definitely, oh, wait a minute. What is this site customization thing? File, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that looks like it could be broken. Let me get out of this container. Let me look at the container file again. And I go, I have obviously my cursor. But I'm like, who did this? They disabled Python by putting AXIT in site customized Python. Like, that looks like, what the hell? Who knows what they were doing? I will go yell at somebody later. for now, let me rebuild this without that thing. That stupid site thing. Why did they do that? And now I can push this. I can go talk to people and yell at people and go figure out what the hell happened. I can push this back out to the registry server. Basically update it, and then I can do a boot the update over here and pull this latest one that I know works because I disabled this whatever this site. Why did somebody do this? I don't know, but I'll find that out later. And then I can reboot. Again, I can wait till 2 a.m. again if I want to reboot it. I could wait till that night again and do another service window. Or I could do it right now because I'm demoing it. And then when I log back in, you'll see that Python is working again. So like makes the workflow so much better than like if you were to do Yum. One, I was able to roll back with impunity, because we know you're going from a known good place to another known good well. And we were actually technically going from a known good place to a bad place. We were running the bad place. Nobody knew. I got paged. I logged in. It's in the bad place. And I went, we're going back to the good place that we already knew worked. And then we'll worry about fixing the bad place tomorrow when I can get up instead of at 2 a.m. when I'm tired and annoyed and pissed off. And then I went and fixed it in the morning, and then I can run an update. And so you basically break up that work in a way that is way more elegant for the human being. And then if I didn't understand what the hell that site Python thing is, I could actually use command line assistant inside the container to ask it a bunch of questions. So let me show you command line assistant. So command line assistant is cool because you just do a C and you go, for example, let me show you something that you can do with, so help me configure this server to the time zone in Sweden. And it'll literally just go out, talk to Red Hat, talk to our models, talk to our model service, and basically it'll say, oh, okay. Open the terminal, set the time zone, blah, blah, blah. So you can say sudo, time, date, cuddle, control, set time zone, Europe, Stockholm. That's pretty cool. Like that's way easier than me going, I can't. One can imagine now troubleshooting a problem. You can definitely imagine a framework here where it gets better and better. Right now it's trained on our knowledge-based data and on our docs, but it's also eventually going to be able to context prompt. You want me to run this? This is the command Red Hat recommends. This is the command that Red Hat recommends, like troubleshoot something, blah, blah, blah. All of that can come from us. I feel fine. The bits are all open source. One, intelligence and help you. I feel like Lightspeed for Red Hat started off with Ansible Lightspeed, and it was a tool that helped you create Ansible playbooks. It was basically the first all-in-one thing we did. Actually, that was a thing we got from IBM in the Granite model. It was one of the first things where we had a technology transfer between when we started playing with the Granite model. These are these open source models that IBM has, LLM models when I say model, and we started doing things with them. We're looking at a whole bunch of other models too, though, not just Granite. We're looking at Quen and all kinds of other open source models, because like different models are good at different things. And honestly, the best is to basically do this agentic workflow where you have different models talking to each other, then calling deterministic programs, sometimes getting the data back and going back and forth between this deterministic and non-deterministic world to figure out and come up with a plan for how to fix something. It's incredible, the stuff that we're like demoing at work internally right now. I mean, the stuff that we're doing is insane. Also, on the build systems in the back end, I mean, we're consuming this stuff all over the place now. But we're also exposing it to users through the Lightspeed tool. And I'm sure over the next 3 years, you're going to see like incredible development in this space. So, you can imagine you run an image mode server. You can think of building a server as like a bunch of knowledge that you're embedding in an image and then moving that image around in the organization, right? And so like image mode plus Lightspeed is pretty darn powerful because it's like you're basically taking this bionic ability to configure a server the right way
freezing it in time as a container image, moving it around, and then basically being able to pull it down and roll back, roll up, impunity rollbacks, which anyone that's tried to yum downgrade knows that works like not all the time.
Pretty much.
Likely not that often actually. That actually works.
So what's the like? I'm a business and I want to use image mode. I pull down the image of like Rhel 10 brand new just released.
Yep.
Now I make some changes to my own image.
Yep.
I would push it to like a local repository
Exactly.
inside my business.
Yep.
Then other people on the system would pull it down.
Exactly. And then they could branch from there. So what Red Hat's doing internally is we actually create our own version of Rhel for our other products. And then like OpenShift is going to build off that one, and Rhel for Edge is building off that. All the other products in Red Hat are actually building in this hierarchy way, where Red Hat's producing the basic image for every Rhel, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, our business unit is producing a base image that everybody else in the organization can use. Quite similar to what our customers will do.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for Silver Blue, you're just consuming. You're not like ever pushing. Is that the big difference? I don't know if the Silver Blue works that well.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't either, because Silver Blue is not something that we productized. There's a perfect example of how something I wasn't paying that much attention to. Something that the community wanted. I have been paying more attention to Bluefin and UBlue because they're the spiritual sort of cousin to Bootsy. Bootsy is the technology that does this Rhel image mode. And I would say Colin Walters was talking with the UBlue guys, and there's definitely some back and forth. And he basically had an aha moment that instead of just, he was the writer, he was the one that wrote RPM OS Tree, which is a technology that Silverblue and UBlue at first started. UBlue basically did all the automation. They did some like little scrappy stuff where they would like use a container file to build these RPM OS Tree. I think that's what they ended up doing. But they basically were pre-packaging a bunch of OS images. They already had a bunch of drivers and things to make it easier. But Colin looked at it all and went, this is a nightmare because all these projects are trying to share this information between them. And if we just used a container file, it would be amazing, right? If we just had a container with a kernel in it that knew how to boot on an operating system. And so he was the one that originally wrote RPMOS Tree. And he's like, this is like RPMOS Tree 2.0 boot C. And so we talked to the UBlue guys and they were like, yeah, we want this. Like they already had legacy infrastructure. They're like, it's going to take us a while to move to it, but we love it. Great idea. Let's do this. So like the conversation started. This is a perfect example where like Red Hat will work with whatever upstream wants to work with us. And I would argue UBlue is a downstream from Fedora, but still an upstream spiritually anyway to like Rhel, like not necessarily physically, like we don't pull bits from UBlue, but like we work with those guys and gals and we like talk with them and we like their ideas and that's the beauty of open source, right? It's bouncing ideas off each other and making changes and figuring out how to like do things the best way. And I think you'll end up seeing Fedora do. Actually, I need to have this conversation with the Fedora guys. We have a new Fedora project lead actually, and he started Reddit Summit, and him and I have been talking a lot. So like, this is actually something I need to bounce off him. Like, we need clearly something boot C in the Fedora world, and they kind of got to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah.
I can't tell them what to do, but
How does Fedora make money? How does that work? Or
They don't.
How do they exist?
they're a cost center.
Yeah, so you just pay for them to exist.
Yes, yeah, we just pay
Okay.
for them to exist.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they don't make money. No, that's all right. They don't need to. There are places where we do innovation. Where we do innovation for
I
Rhel.
feel like your R&D lab.
In fact, I'm working on an internal document right now to explain what the value creation is from all of these for the community. What is the value created by Fedora, CentOS, and Rhel? And then what is the value captured by Red Hat? I would argue the value captured from Fedora is innovation. We get a place that we can go experiment. I was a Podman product manager, so I launched Podman and I launched Red Hat Universal Base Image. And we would go experiment, like we would be like, oh, we want to change the way the storage works in Podman. Let's go do it in Fedora for a couple dot releases before we pull it into Rhel 9 or 8.5 or whatever. So we would do everything upstream first. We would go change in Fedora and then we would change it in Rhel. The subcomponents are pretty easy to change in Fedora because there was nobody in Fedora that wanted to do that work. So our engineers were already doing that work. So it was a great place to do innovation. Giuseppe Scribano is this amazing engineer that does all this crazy stuff with Podman. He's got more crazy ideas than anybody I've ever met. And obviously you can't do crazy ideas in Rhel. That just doesn't work. You can't do that. But you can do them in Fedora. And then the next major release of Rhel, if it's breaking change, you can pull it in. So between Rhel 8 and Rhel 9, we pulled in all kinds of crazy stuff. Podman and Rhel 9 is like a lot different than Rhel 8, like the way it's configured and what it will do. C groups V2 by default, C run by default, like all these things that we went from Rhel 8 to Rhel 9 that you can't do. But we experimented with them at Fedora and we already knew they worked well. So like doing it upstream first, I would argue the value creation or capture for Red Hat is that we get innovation. With CentOS, the two main value captures we get are like we have a customer in France actually that is like submitting patches to change Rhel. And now that Rhel's development is actually transparent and upstream and community driven, he can actually submit PRs and actually like say, hey, like here's the thing I want to change, and we can be like, yeah, yes or no. But he is a customer, so it's like, all right. I mean, he probably knows as long as it doesn't break the rules of like breaking API compatibility and things like that. As long as it passes all the tests and works, it's potentially possible to accept a PR from a customer now, which we could not do before. That was not something that we've ever really done. I mean, we've done it, but it's like very manual and one-off. Now it's able to be done as like just a standard thing.
They're experimenting on CentOS first.
Yeah, because they want to make a change to the next dot release of Rhel because they're a Rhel customer. So yeah.
PR stands for product.
Oh, sorry, a pull request.
Okay.
Yeah, where they make a change and then they basically submit a pull request and say, hey, can you pull this change and add it to the code?
Thank you.
Yeah. But so it's interesting. So I think we get transparent changes that are pretty cool for our customers. And then we also get it with our partners. So like Intel and Nvidia and all these hardware vendors, they want to make changes and experiment with Rhel to like work with their hardware. That was hard before. They had to have like separate subscriptions and they had to fart around and like they were partner engineers and they had to be able to log into our system and do all this like behind the scenes stuff. Now a lot of that can happen in the transparent and the open. And so that's kind of cool. Because we have no problem with the world seeing what thing we're doing with Nvidia or Intel or whatever. That's all fine. The only thing that we hide are embargoed CVEs. Really the only thing. I don't know if you guys know what embargoed CVEs are. So embargoed CVEs are like Google calls us up and actually every big vendor, like there's like, I don't know, 20 or I don't know how many vendors are in this network of the CVE system, but like there's like the big embargoed vendors that like, well, Google, Facebook, Red Hat, that all basically Google calls up and be like, hey, we found this bug in the kernel. Like we can't tell anyone because if we tell the world, it'll get hacked. You need to fix it. And we'll say, all right, we got the guy that can fix this. We'll fix it. Then we'll give the patch to everybody. And then basically everybody pulls the trigger at the same time we announce the CE publicly after we've already fixed it and patched everything. And so that's called embargoed. There's like a secret cabal of people that will work on patching it before hackers know. But theoretically, before the CIA might already know about it because I'm sure they have a list of 0-day CVEs. But like general public doesn't know about it. So you want to patch it before you release it, before you tell the world. That makes everyone safer. That's the only kind of development we don't do in transparency. And even that's kind of transparent because we're doing it with a bunch of other companies too. So it's not like we're hiding it. It's just you can't tell the world because hackers will take advantage of it if you publish it. But other than that, everything else happens transparently. We do basically everything upstream first.
You want to go through your slides?
I did. I went through,
okay.
Well, I didn't go through all of them, but like I went through the gist of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I feel like that captured basically most of what. I mean, I have drawings, talk, blah blah blah, but most of it's the demos anyway.
Mhm.
I feel like I showed most of
Yeah,
the value
okay.
of those things. Yeah, I will say we did a couple other things. We launched the extension channel, which is pretty cool. So we're bringing stuff from Apple into Rhel, and we're actually looking at doing more and more of this, maybe automating it all again as our build system. We're doing all kinds of crazy stuff with our build system internally. But I think the value prop of that is that like there are people that like Apple, but they don't like that it's hosted in Fedora. They want that to come from Rhel. They want that to exist in a Rhel channel. They want it to like work in satellite. They want to see it, feel it, touch it like it's part of Rhel. And they want to know that it's in Red Hat's custody, like officially. It's not managed by some upstream open source community, but it's managed by Red Hat engineers 100%. And so like there is some value proposition for our customers there where there's a lot of customers that are like, what they're doing with Apple today is they will synchronize it on premise, take control of it, and then they will use it from there, but they won't pull it directly from upstream. It's like the chain of custody, from a legality perspective, it's different when you host it on premise. This is the perfect example of something that's different for a business versus an individual. Like a user will just pull right from Apple and be like, whatever. But like a bank doesn't want to do that. Like their lawyers are like, nah, we're not doing that. That's crazy talk. Like we'll synchronize it once a month and then we'll have people look at it and then we'll know it's ours and then it's cool. But we have to have some kind of process to make it ours and change the custody from there to here,
Sounds like a supply chain impacts, right? Think about
Yep.
every time they made a bad NPM packet, the whole world has to like quick,
Yeah.
yeah, you want it back, so they don't want to deal with it.
Exactly that. Yeah, so now we've launched this thing called the extension channel that has some package. First thing in there was Podman Desktop. We actually have Podman Desktop as an RPM. That's actually a flat pack package that's an RPM. Some hacky stuff, but
Yeah.
it makes it easy for people to install. You do a yum install Podman now and it just works. Podman Desktop, sorry, and it just works in Rhel now. Which is kind of cool. That was not something we had before. Podman Desktop's taken off too. That was sort of an indirect baby. I've mentored all the product managers that like start and engineers that started that a little bit.
It's not
I mean,
like Docker Desktop.
It's like Docker
UI
Desktop.
for it.
Yeah, it's the UX for the UI, like a graphical UI for Podman. It's actually pretty badass. Like it's gotten very popular, and I actually enjoyed it. It's quite actually here. It's quite sexy actually.
Kind of black.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it actually even has a plugin for bootable containers, so you can actually create like I can use it to basically build my laptop push to the registry and use it. Actually, it's how I originally created that container file that you see. I actually created it with Podman Desktop. There's also something called a config.toml that you got to create. The one thing that I didn't mention, because it's an implementation detail, but you may actually care if you go to do this, it's a container image, but you still have to turn it into a disk image. You have to it's an OCI container image when it lives in the registry. You got to pull it down and then convert it to something that actually will lay down on the disk, right? It has to have partitions and things. There is a process going between a container image and a disk image. And so Podman Desktop just kind of handles that. This bootc plugin handles all that and will create the thing that you want. It'll actually go create the config file there's a single config file that you need. There's a little bit of learning curve when you go to do it because it's very sexy when I show you the 2 a.m. thing, but the getting started, there is some knowledge that you need to know to like get it to actually work. The day zero work is a little bit counterintuitive right now, which we're going to work on, but the day 2 operations workflow is amazing.
You need an image to set up the disk basically, and then after that it can pull down the
Exactly.
Put it
Exactly.
in there. Oh, it should be slot.
And there's a lot of decisions that you got to make during that beginning part, which it's crazy. So you can actually boot up Fedora image mode and then do a bootc switch to Rhel and reboot and you're in Rhel. The one challenge with that is like Fedora image mode uses Btrfs. So if you're fine using Rhel with Btrfs, which you're not because it's not supported, a bootc switch is bad. I mean, it's beautiful, it'll work, but it's not supported. So really what you need to do is like create Fedora. You can go click next in the installer, create like a boot, or actually here's a perfect example of crazy workflow that you can do. You can literally download uBlue, click next in their installer, change the file system to extension 4 or XFS, and then once you boot it up, do a bootc switch into Rhel, and that's fine. Because it'll just lay down Rhel on the disk in that extension 4 or in that XFS file system, and you can just start working on Rhel then from there on, and you've like converted it into Rhel, even though you started with uBlue, Universal Blue. So there's like all these crazy workflows that happen now that you have bootc. If you want to experiment with a different operating system, you just do a bootc switch. You're like, oh, I don't like this bootc switch back. It's like so incredibly empowering. Like it's just different way of thinking now. I bootc switch into whatever, and I reboot, and I feel like. I can tell you, like, I was working on it right before I did my presentation at Summit with a bunch of people, and I was like, I felt like I had impunity. I was invincible. I was like, you can't really break the system. Technically, you could corrupt the file system and cause something weird like that to happen, but in general, it's pretty damn bulletproof. Like, it's pretty hard to destroy a system. I mean, you could probably screw up something in var, but it would be pretty hard. You'd have to purposefully do something nasty to your system. But in general, like rolling between Linux distros and things like that's fine. It's pretty sick, actually. It's what I've always wanted.
Like Etsy, so Etsy is not apps or Etsy.
Etsy is mapped. Yeah, certain parts of it. I think certain parts or all of Etsy is mapped to var. Yeah.
That's one thing. I saw you pulled in the art comps, pulled some other things.
Yeah.
Those sit basically on a beautiful layer.
That's exactly right. I pulled them into the immutable layer, but the mutable overlay is basically in var. So if I were to go in there and VI it, it would like create an overlay.
So if I wanted to be compartment needs to be in the container, so it's really config basically.
Yeah, the way I'd work.
Probably want to do something in the build where you pull them down. Even then, you don't really want them floating around the image. So there is some last. This is something we're working about with our customer now. Kubernetes has etcp save those secrets, encrypted. We definitely need to build some kind of system to manage secrets at scale for Rhel fleets that requires encryption, because you can't have those secrets floating around. Because obviously, if somebody hacks into your registry server, secret, especially when your registry server lets people pull anything internally, so it has basically zero protection. So basically, anybody internally can pull it, get the secrets. That's super bad. So yeah, there's still some work to do there, but I still think for an initial release, it's pretty badass. But you still have to be a little bit smart about certain things. You can do something. This is another thing that's the product
Side of it versus like open source. Open source, like whatever. You have to be smart. That's fine. When it's a product, it's like actually there's some responsibility for us to make it like work the way the principle of least, I call it the principle of least surprise. Like it has to follow the principle of least surprise. You should not be surprised when it does some weird thing, Yeah.
And we should probably wrap so we can go
Yeah.
home here, but
Yeah.
that's really interesting. That's
Yeah.
so Rhel 10 is good for how many years? 10-year?
10 years plus 3-year
plus.
extended life cycle support, possibly more. We'll see. I mean, it's very possible we might extend that.
Yeah. With AI being able to pull those across the.
Yeah, imagine who knows how good these code assistants are going to be in 5 years. It's very possible we might.
No engineer wants to do that. But when you can make an LLM do it and it bangs its head against the wall until it figures out how to do it, I don't feel bad beating an LLM up. It doesn't have feelings. At least now. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's about 1 to 3. Well, yes, it's roughly 18 months to 3 years behind. You do pull down hardware support. Yeah. I mean, we backport a bunch of stuff from Fedora. So yeah, hardware support. In those first, remember that drawing I showed you in that dark blue bar? We backport hardware support during that blue phase.
That explains it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And then generally when it goes into the light blue extended, the light that we call it, I forget what that phase 2 of that life cycle support, we don't backport hardware in that. We actually have a whole team of product managers that manage all the hardware support, which is honestly sounds crazy, but it's a detail I try not to pay attention to because it's too much. It's like let them handle all that. I'm trying to think about the big rocks and what we're going to change strategically, and I kind of let them handle the operational things. But every now and then that bites me, like Intel V3 support or RISC-V or ARM 64 versus 32. I get pulled into it even when I try not to be, because it becomes strategic to certain customers. They care. But most of the time I don't have to think about it too much. That's actually something I want to make even smoother in Rhel 11 too. It's another thing I want to make.
So how many people from the 10 group kind of keep going on 11? Is that pretty much the same?
Really, the Rhel group isn't broken up like that. It is just you work on Rhel. So everybody's working on everything. We're treating Rhel 10 and Rhel 11 as different. So we have a Rhel program that goes, and then all the active streams are all managed within this program at the same time. So we're basically add Rhel 10 to it. We won't add Rhel 11 because it's not real yet. So we have a different program where I manage that basically until it becomes real bits. Right now, it's just me and several other people pontificating, and going and bugging people, but eventually it will become a real thing where there's real bits.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.